Next, we're going to hear from Josh Bauman, who's been a longtime member at Electronic Arts, and hear his story. Josh, are you there?
Hey, how's it going, JR?
Hey, good. Over to
Good.
you.
I'm Josh Bauman, Director of Strategy and Planning at Electronic Arts. So thanks, everybody. I will be presenting at FinOps X, a longer session of kind of what we're doing today, giving you more of the story there. And I'm the ambassador for Austin as well. So didn't get my 30-second shout out earlier because I've got the longer one here, like Joe mentioned. So we're going to piggyback off of Vic's presentation a little bit, which was excellent. So shout out to Vic there. Looking forward to collaborating with you a little bit there. And my slide, I didn't know that I had animation in the slide here, JR.
There we go. I'm happy to click as many times as you want.
Okay, no, that's perfect right now.
Okay.
I'm not sure where that happened with animation, so apologies for that.
No worries.
Where I'm coming from, this kind of piggybacks off the conversations with Vic, and even Scott had a question in the chat just a minute ago about doing chargeback specifically on reserved instances, savings plans, EC2, and we ran into a problem years ago at EA with how we manage this. And to give you a little bit of where we are coming from, whenever we buy an RI, I buy all the RIs centrally, I buy all the savings plans centrally. We'd have, and then what would happen at the end of the month, we'd end up with about 50 different rates for the single product, right? An M5 large, depending on if you got it all up front, no up front, partial up front, 1 year, 3 year, on demand. It could be a host of different rates. And depending on how many of each of those you used in the 720 hours in the month, changed your fee around, right? And so a couple of years ago, we looked at when savings plans came out and said, how do we make this simpler? How do we make this easier? So what we went through a process, and you'll see this on the next slide here, what we went through is a process of iteration and said, okay, how do we come up with a way for our end users to consume from a chargeback perspective that makes it easier for them, yet gives us the ability to manage our RIs and savings plan central. So that's the first thing we did, was set the stage, right? We went through and said, okay, we got a whole bunch of products that we want to buy from, in this case, AWS, but we do the same thing with GCP and Azure as well too. But we want to buy, these great commitments up front that allow us to save money, right? However, if I apply the bill natively, it's going to give me random rates all over the place, and I can't give a really good chargeback. And that makes it really hard for me to forecast going forward on an individual basis. So we laid out some ground rules. First was derivation must be clear. And second, the rate must be stable. Right? How do we ensure that we have not this random rate throughout the entire month based on whatever product gets applied during that particular hour? So how do we do that? So the way we got to this is we said, okay, we're going to have a single rate for EC2. Regardless of what your discount is, whether you have a PPA, an EDP, whatever those words are that gets applied, or a RI or a savings plan, we're going to give you a consistent rate. The second thing is we're going to go through and look at that on a cadence basis and say, hey, is our rate good or not? So we're going to update on a cadence basis. And finally, we're not going to hit the nail on the head, right? Because if you've got a cost and you want to if it's a variable cost and you're passing it through, it's going to be variable to the end users. If you set up a stable rate, then you're going to have to hold that variance somewhere else, whether it's a plus up or down. So I decided I'm going to hold that variance in my department, whether it's a profit or a loss, but I'm going to hold on to that variance and I'm going to control that margin, and I'm not going to have everybody else worry about pass through of variable rates for the hundreds of accounts that I have. So what did this end up looking like? So JR, next slide. Sorry, that's the next slide. So kind of went ahead a little bit of myself here, but what we did then is we got our savings plans and our reserved instances in there and talked to our finance teams and our business partners and said, okay, the way that the rates are applied today, they negative impact our chargeback methodology today. It's inconsistent. The rates come across. It doesn't allow us to scenario plan well because we're not sure what the rate will be at any one moment. our end users are then coming in. So back to the slide from Vic about inspiring engineers to have action. Well, this would inspire our engineers to have negative behavior of wanting to put their RIs at 100% in their account to get the lowest possible rate so they could spend more. And yet, if they went to a new instance size or changed their plans, then it was left me holding the bag as the centralized group, not being able to understand where I'm going to apply those RIs to a different place. And again, final point there was accuracy at a project level. I was then not able to have the same rate across every single project throughout the entire company while maintaining a semblance. So then JR, now next slide, apologies. This is the solution that we came up with. So our previous solution was if an RI is in the native account, it gets the RR rate. If not, then it goes through some other process. What we've done the last 18 months is we now have our EC2 at a consistent % off of on-demand cost. That's the trade secret internal EA number that we have there. And everybody gets that exact same rate for every EC2 usage that they have. I then manage the RI, the savings plan, the 1 year, the 3 year, the all upfront, the no upfront, the partial upfront, all behind the curtains, behind the scenes. And so every engineer just says, okay, hey, I'm going to go use that M, I'm going to go use that R, I'm going to go use a Mac instance. What's the rate? Oh, it's just X% off of on demand. So go look at the AWS calculator, put in the rate there, and then apply that trade secret, and then all of a sudden you've got your rate. I've maintained this for over the last year. It's been about 15 months that we've had this in cycle. Right now, we've been able to maintain that same exact rate. We've gone through and looked at updating it on an annual basis, but our finance team has decided that we're going to keep it going for another year. So we'll probably have the rate stable for 2 years right now at this point. And that margin has just been maintained in my side. Inside EA, I've got a little bit of a profit going on, which is nice from that perspective, but it allows me to maintain conservative nature. You may ask what happens if I have a large margin outside one way or another, if I have a large amount of usage. I then apply as penalty to that one team for that particular month if they have a large spike in usage. So I even have an out if something goes astray with my rate there. At the summit, at FinOps X, I'm going to go further into our RI and savings plan journey, expand that to CUDs, along with what we're talking about at GCP and Azure as well too. So please come to the summit or the FinOps X, and I'd love to have more presentation with y'all.
JR here from the FinOps Foundation. Thank you for watching. Please go to FinOps.org if you want to get plugged into this amazing community. And of course, hit subscribe right here on YouTube to get all the future content. Hope to see you soon.